This episode and every episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show is brought to you by Ironmonger Brewing. Visit Ironmonger at their taproom in Marietta, Georgia, or online at ironmongerbrewing.com.
Open up a tab, grab a seat, and pour a pint. It's time for the Beer Guys Radio Show.
You want free beer? Go to the brewery.
Dedicated to the art, science, and enjoyment of craft beer.
Yeah, what's wrong with the beer we got?
Now, here are your hosts, Tim Dennis and Brian Hewitt.
And welcome to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We're broadcasting from the Beer Guys Radio Studios in Marietta, Georgia. This is episode 201, and we're talking with Pfriem Family Brewers. I'm Tim Dennis, and with me, as always, is my good friend and co-host, Brian Hewitt.
Hey, Tim. So, yes, we have Josh Pfriem, the co-founder and brewmaster at Pfriem Family Brewers, with us today. We're going to talk about lagers, barrel-aged beers, Pfriem's big expansion plans, and what it takes to grow in an increasingly competitive craft beer market. Josh, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Josh, we're currently sipping some lagers there. I know that's what originally got us connected was Lager Talk. Do you have a lager in your glass this evening?
Yes, I sure do. I'm drinking and enjoying a Pfriem Pilsner.
Good stuff. We've got a couple more we're going to get into as well, Brian.
Yes.
Have a good time with it. So this, Brian, is the time when we kind of talk about what we got into, what we drank this week. And last week was actually a big one for us. We celebrated our 200th episode. So we had a little party here at our friends Ironmonger in their tasting room, had a little party, and then moved after party, or maybe still the party, into the studio a little bit.
It just kind of migrated at a certain point.
Just kind of moved over at a certain point, but we had a good time. We had Al Sharpton, with, big beer journalist here in the Atlanta area. He gets to do stuff like travel to Montreal and eat poutine and drive Rolls Royces and Mercedes.
Yeah, the big part is the guy gets to take cars.
Yeah,
so.
He does really cool stuff there. So we had Caroline from the B-Beer podcast.
That's right.
Jay Brantley, Brian, stopped by. Jay is won our best homebrewer in the 2018 Best of Georgia Beer Awards, a little competition we put on each year. He came in and did a show with us earlier in this year, talked homebrewing, gave us some homebrewing tips, but he stopped by and brought a few of his homebrews that we enjoyed. It was a good time, man. Charcuterie, cake, beer.
Yeah. I still think he's the best brew pub in Georgia. He was nominated
for that. Yes, for everything. Best beer fest, all of that. So we had a celebration, opened one of our favorite, got a Magnum, Brian, a whole Magnum of Dre Fontaine and Oud Goose that we opened up and shared around for a toast there. That was a fun time. But other than that, Brian, what did you get into this week?
Yeah, other than that cake with our logo on it, which was great. I liked eating our logo. That was neat. Good cake, too. I didn't do a lot, but I got into a few beers, like a couple a night, maybe one a night. The little Scofflaw Trim Tab 3rd anniversary collaboration. I got a few of those knocking around, and some Old Nation Boss Tweed and a little Nevada Sierra Vesa, which is always a fun one to say, a little bit of this and that. But the big thing of the week for me was the 200th episode celebration.
Party.
So,
you mentioned the cake and enjoying that. That actually quite nicely with that goose that we had.
It did, yes.
It went pretty darn well with it. So that was a pretty cool one. I took it easy this week. I had a few of my Oktoberfest, Brian, some leftovers in the fridge that I cracked into. I think I had some Sam Adams in there that I got into, and trying to clear it out, make room for the barley wines and stouts and all that. Bring the season in. It's seasonal cleaning, spring cleaning, fall cleaning.
An Oktoberfest suicide where you pour every Oktoberfest you
them
have
all in
into
there.
a liter glass, just drink it.
Yeah,
That'd be fantastic.
no, I've got a 5-gallon bucket actually that I use. So
a drinking bucket or a dump bucket, whatever,
whatever you need, man. Whatever makes you feel good there. But yeah, so a good week, celebrations, and Oktoberfest.
Hey, Josh, what did you get into this week? Anything interesting?
We're just starting to change up of our beers around here. We're starting to get into our bigger, darker beers. We released our barrel-aged Scotch brown ale on Friday. So I had a couple of those over the weekend, enjoyed that. I also have one of our fall hazy beers, Juicy IPA. It's actually a little bit on the lighter side in the midst of the heavier beers of the hazy beers. So it was a nice reprieve, and always lots of lagers. We have a Czech-inspired lager that we're drinking on around here right now, enjoying a bunch of those. And so it was a good mix.
Do you try to stay pretty seasonal with styles, or is it more, hey, this strikes my fancy, we're going to brew it up?
I think in 2020, we have planned to make 140 different beers.
Wow.
And so we have a couple different beers coming off each week. And through that, a lot of them are fairly seasonal focus. And so any given week around here, like it can be very specific with 2 or 3 unique beers potentially coming off in a week. Like we have it dialed to like not just like a quarterly season, but to like, oh, this month, this date, time, temperature, these things going on. We probably want to drink this beer.
See, that's it. Everybody's shifting to hyper local, so we got to go hyper seasonal as well.
Yeah.
This beer is released November 22nd. That is the day you drink it. That's what it's for. You know, we
plus or minus 12 hours.
That's right. Yeah. Anything after that, it's out of the question. You know, we had a little fun earlier this summer. We did a show called Stouts Are for Summer, just kind of throw a little something crazy into it. And we have a brewery here, Orpheus Brewing, that their anniversary is it Memorial Day weekend?
I think so, yeah. Right.
But he released like, I don't know, what was it, a dozen different barrel-aged stout variants?
12 to 16. I don't recall.
Yeah.
14. I'm going to say 14.
If I remember right, we actually had a big heat snap right there, like even warmer than, so it was close to 100 degrees, and we're out there sipping 13% thick as mud stouts.
That's
just like God intended. Brian.
Exactly. Yeah. Just the way it was intended. Well, Tim, I think it's time to get into the beers of the week.
Crack open a cold one. It's the Truck and Tap Beer of the Week. Woo-hoo! Craft beer and food trucks in downtown Woodstock. Truckandtap.com.
Well, Brian, as we mentioned, lagers are kind of a theme that we're going to dip into today. So we're drinking Creature Comforts Classic City Lager right now. We're also going to get into, we got a goodie box from Iowa from a brewery called Single Speed Brewing, and they had a Pilsner in there. It was kind of a kismet, Brian, because Zach is rocking an Iowa sweatshirt today, and they also have a stout called Zach's Mexican Donuts. So it was everything. Zach's name's on the beer. He's rocking the Iowa sweatshirt. We got the Iowa beers in, so we're gonna check them out. And Brian, I know you got to throw some hops in here.
Yes.
So we have Lupulin Brewing's Sophistry, which for those that don't know is the art of sofa making.
Yes.
So we're going to enjoy that a lot. And we pre-gamed with a little Old Nation Boss Tweed. So that's it. We'll see what else we get into from there.
You can never go wrong with that.
Absolutely. Brian, what is happening this week in the news?
What's in the news? The beer guys have the scoop.
Extra, extra, read all about it.
Time for headlines.
So I think we got a conclusion to the Founders story. Founders has issued a final statement on the lawsuit and its outcome. In case you missed it, of course, Founders was being sued by a former employee alleging racial discrimination and wrongful termination. And there was a whole infamous thing about the manager not knowing the employee was black because he didn't know his lineage, which was really puzzling that he would say that. But this week we learned that the lawsuit has been dismissed, and after the parties involved reached a settlement agreement. The final statement posted on the Founders website includes comments from both Founders and the former employee who brought the suit. In it, Founders says they commit to move the cause of diversity and inclusion forward for Founders, and that the settlement means that both parties agreed that no party will be viewed at fault in this case. That may be true legally, but the verdict is still out in the court of popular opinion.
It was an interesting reading those two statements side by side with Founders like, we agreed no parties are at fault. And
yeah.
I'll just say that the other dude did not just specifically call them at fault, but it read a little bit differently than that. But he did say, hey, we're all going to kumbaya here and see what happens moving forward.
And of course, the settlement, they didn't disclose any of the figures, but it was enough to make him happy. So there's a saying going around these days, and perhaps you've heard it. Big beer just can't catch a break.
I have heard that, yes.
In a setback for Miller Coors in the Stone Brewing lawsuit, a federal judge says Miller Coors intentionally withheld marketing material during the discovery phase of the lawsuit. Stone requested sanctions be imposed on Miller Coors as a result of this action, or inaction, as it were, and the judge granted them partial award of monetary sanctions, which means Miller Coors will pay some portion of the $420,000+ Stone has already lacked up in legal fees. Basically, Miller Coors selectively withheld marketing materials that might hurt their claim to the words Stone and Stones in beer. Hashtag put the key back in Keystone.
Keystone, man.
Yeah.
I don't remember them using Stone as a marketing thing.
I don't either.
Other than with Keith Stone.
Keith Stone.
Who was their cool little redneck dude that did amazing things out there. I do recall that, his marketing, but I don't remember it, man. It was always Keystone, Keystone Light, what have you out there.
I was racking my brain thinking about it, and all I've heard is what they say they've done. I don't ever remember ever seeing anything about that. It was Keystone, yeah.
We'll let the law dog settle it, right?
Indeed.
You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We do need to take a break. But we'll be right back to talk more with Pfriem Family Brewers.
Is your brewery or restaurant flooring all jacked up? Your foundation needs to be protected from heat, chemicals, and other contaminants. At the same time, you want to make sure it's slip resistant and you can clean up your messes with soap and water. You know who to call?
ResTech.
We've been manufacturing poured-in-place flooring since 2002, and we've got solutions to fit any facility's needs. Go on and visit our website at
ResTech.net.
That's RES-TEK.net. Drop us a line and we will come to you for a free evaluation.
Oh, yeah. Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. Woo!
Now, back to the Beer Guys radio show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you miss an episode, don't worry. All episodes are available as a podcast. Subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and never miss a show. Now back to our conversation with Josh Pfriem and Pfriem Family Brewers.
Josh, we were bantering a little bit in between segments there during the break about hemp beers. And we commented that our friends at Terrapin just released something they're calling the dispensary pack, a little variety pack. They've got a hemp Berliner, a hemp brownie ale, and a hemp IPA. And you said you haven't played in that area yet. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Any intentions to? Is that a flavor combo that interests you?
I don't know. It's not high on our radar, but we do so many different things. I'm not a quick one to say no, but normally if I have something that inspires me, that somebody's done really well, and I'm like, man, that could really probably could find a place for that. We'll play around with it, but also I'm not into too kitschy of things just for the sake of doing it. So, you can put anything in a beer. You can put a dog, you can put a goat, you could put a shoe.
They probably have.
They have. Yeah. Did you catch that, Tim? It's not high on this list.
I did catch that.
Very nice.
Absolutely.
Nicely done, sir.
Are there a lot of breweries out there? I mean, with the herb out in that area, are there a lot of breweries playing with those now?
Not really. I mean,
Okay.
pot's legal out here, so it keeps its own realm, and people are keeping it more in gummies and things like that. And it's not really, pot products aren't really getting into beer at a very fast rate around here. A couple little guys here and there, but it definitely hasn't taken off.
I guess I could see that. If it's legal there and you can get the edibles and all that other stuff, then bringing those dank flavors in there may not be as big of a draw.
You could just smoke it and drink the beer.
Yeah. Now, and see, I'm not a marijuana enthusiast. It's not my thing, but I do like some of the hemp beers, like Sweetwater's G13.
Yes.
I think is really nice. But the Hemperor one, that was too much for me. I think that one, the whole point of that one was to make it as stank and danky as they could.
It's a shock. It was like the first exposure a lot of people had to that in a beer. And it turns heads, and I think it's selling well for them. I would really like to try a hemp terpene lambic style beer, and I think Pfriem Family Brewers would have to be the people who did it. I mean, I don't know if I would trust it from any other source, to be honest with you.
We've got the ideas there for you, a hemp lambic style there.
He's writing that on his list of things he'll never do.
Right. The not to-do list. That totally makes sense. Well, I tell you what, let's talk about some things that you have done, Josh. We see a big award for you last year, GABF. You guys have taken quite a few awards, but you got the Mid-Size Brewing Company of the Year last year at GABF. Is that correct?
We did. Yeah. Thanks.
Absolutely. Is that does something like that, does it make a difference for your brewery? Is it something that you see more growth or impact at the brewery when you get an award of that caliber?
I think it's like a lot of awards, it's very validating when you win different types, or you don't win them. It doesn't really change the beer itself, but if people are already really excited about what you're doing and then you win something really big on top of it, it really validates that. And so I think it's been really exciting. Our fans and our consumers have been able to celebrate with us, and it definitely adds to the realm of things that build our business, but I don't think it is like a slam dunk that just all of a sudden takes your business a different path, but just a validation of we brew beer that we're really excited about and a path that we're really want to. And it's awesome when you win an award like that.
I think that's something every brewer wants. It's like, look, we're making this beer. We're excited about it. We're proud of it. And when others are as well, that's really, I guess, what all brewers are going for.
That and to have a room with a vat full of metals that they could Scrooge McDuck into.
Just Scrooge McDuck into the metals.
Swimming through the beer metals.
Nice,
that's kind of what I thought everybody was in it
nice.
for. But
well, that's something
I could be wrong.
We talked to brewers before. We talked to the guys from Almanac at GABF a few years ago, and they mentioned it can be tricky there, especially if you're a creative brewery, because you may not fit into some of these categories that they have, with the style guidelines and all that. So it can be tricky. You may be making phenomenal beers, but the fact that you don't take that metal into your category doesn't necessarily mean that you're not making fantastic beers out there.
You're just not making it directly to the style guides. So switching gears a bit, you've got some big plans coming up for the brewery, some expansions. Tell us a little bit about what's happening there.
Sure. Yeah, we have lots of fun stuff on the horizon. I mean, as a company, we've pretty much been in a nonstop state of expansion since we started, with just different waves and moments of pause. But the last couple of years, we've been in the planning process. And in the moment, we have a lot of things that are currently coming to fruition. We have a half-built new facility in Cascade Locks, which is about 20 miles west of us. It's a 25,000 square foot greenfield building that'll be finished in January. We're going to be moving all of our logistics there, our warehousing, our dry storage, our cold storage. And then a big part of what we do is our wood and barrel age program, which we currently have in our Hood River facility. And years ago, it felt like we had a lot of room here for that, but we started to get crunched and tight. And so with this, we're actually going to pick up our cool ship, all our barrels, our fooders, all of our wood program. We're going to be able to move it to Cascade Locks, and then we're actually able to have more room to grow it. So we're super excited about that. The next phase of that is we're currently at capacity. We'll make just shy of about 30,000 barrels of beer this year. And with moving some of that stuff out of our current space on the Hood River waterfront, we'll be able to put in another brew house here. We've just placed a purchase order for a 50 hectoliter 6-vessel system from GA. And then in order to support that, we're building a malt handling house out back, wastewater treatment plant, plenty of more cellar and packaging to support it all. And so we have a lot going on, but when we do our expansions and any opportunity we have to make more beer, we take that opportunity and always make sure that we make actually better beer on the other side of it. So we're really excited to get all this new equipment in, new spaces, and be able to take our team and our beer to the next step.
Now, Josh, you mentioned that you're building a malt handling house, and what exactly is that? Is it exactly what it sounds like it is?
Well, yeah, it's basically, it'll be malt storage on site, and then we'll be able to have super stack stations. We bring over some malt from Germany and other parts of the UK. That'll be really nice to be able to have in that format, and then be able to move from our grain silos, putting a couple new ones into that room as well. That'll be about a little over 2,000 square foot building. And then with the new brew house, one of the vessels is a wet mill, which is an amazing piece of equipment. And so all that malt will be moved from the malt house essentially into our current building, where it'll go straight into the wet mill.
Huh, that's interesting. You mentioned earlier, I think I saw that I heard this somewhere else as well, that you're doing a wastewater treatment plant. I don't know that I've heard anybody else do that. What's the advantage to having a wastewater treatment plant at the brewery?
The municipality is making sure that what we put down the drain is within their spec. And so as a producer, we're required to uphold that code, and we're making a decent amount of beer. So we're in a small town with a small municipality. So we're at a point now rather than just diverting and manage it as we can, that we actually have to build a whole treatment plant, which is good. It's good for the environment, good stewardship, but definitely a huge undertaking.
Yeah, that's something that I wouldn't think about as someone who's never started a brewery. Is that something I've heard a lot of brewers talk about, as a big concern, something they have to consider is,
Wastewater.
there's a lot of liquid going in and out of a brewery. So definitely something that they have to take into consideration there. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We need to take a break, but we'll be right back to talk more with Josh Pfriem of Pfriem Family Brewers. Brian and Tim, the Beer Guys. If you're like us, no lunch or dinner is complete without a pint or two of craft beer.
Which is why Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth are always on our list. Tim, why do they call it Truck and Tap?
Well, the tap part is easy, Brian. They've got 18 of them.
As for the truck part, that's where it gets interesting. Truck and Tap features your favorite Atlanta area food trucks, so you're getting a different menu every day.
Truck and Tap in downtown Woodstock, Alpharetta, and Duluth.
Truckandtap.com. Let them know that the Beer Guys sent you.
Craft beer forged with a reverence for tradition and new styles that start a revolution. Ironmonger Brewing. The brewers at Ironmonger Brewing pride themselves at being masters of barrel-aged, hoppy, and sour beers. They invite you to their tap room in Marietta, Georgia to taste and see. Also visit their barrel room for an intimate drinking experience with great live entertainment. Keep up to date on all things Ironmonger by liking them on Facebook. Ironmonger Brewing, establishing a new standard in craft beer.
As a brewery owner or taproom manager, are you looking for ways to enhance your customer experience while maximizing your revenues? Craft Cellar is a mobile solution that helps your brewery drive sales and attract new customers through online pre-sales for beer releases, events, and memberships. Get details now at craftcellar.com. Mention Beer Guys Radio after sign-up and extend your free trial to a full 30 days. Remember, craftcellar.com, craftcellr.com.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
The numbers all go to 11.
Does that mean it's louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. I want to give a quick shout out to one of our great radio affiliates, KTEL 1490 AM and 99.7 FM in Walla Walla, Washington. Catch Beer Guys Radio on KTEL every Sunday at 2 p.m. local time. Now back to our conversation with Josh Pfriem and Pfriem Family Brewers.
Brian, I got to admit, I like being on in Walla Walla, Washington. It's fun to say.
It's not too far away from where Josh is at, and I've actually done that trip because I lived in Portland, Oregon. I've driven through Hood River on the way over to Walla Walla, Washington. So I've done that entire thing. Yes.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Well, Josh, we talked a little bit in the last segment. We were talking about your expansion and a lot more barrel room for you there. And, I think a lot of breweries, it seems like things like bourbon are the favored barrel. You use a lot of wine barrels. Is that right?
We do. Yeah, we do. We definitely do a decent amount of spirited stuff, but, the lion's share of our program is in wine barrels.
So when you're making a beer, do you design a beer to go with a barrel or what's your process for kind of deciding how to marry the two there?
Well, we really separate out our different programs. In our spirited programs, it's absolutely, talked about earlier, our Scotch brown ale that we just released for the year. We're looking at the flavor characteristics of what's in Scotch, what's coming out of the barrel, and then we're designing a beer that's going to complement all those flavors. And then a similar is in more of our sour or wild side. We have a couple different programs there. Some of them are our Flanders programs, which are inspired by some of the beers out of West Flanders, Belgium. And the base barrels for those, most of them come from Pinot Noir barrels, really, really high quality French oak barrels. And those give those beautiful homes. They give a lot of big wine, tannins, and create really bright, beautiful acidity because the quality of the wood is super high. And then on the other side, you have a lot of our lambic inspired beers, which those are a good mix of very different types of really, really high quality wine barrels. We like a little more diversity there to drive different flavors. But a key thing for those is that they've had, anywhere from 5 to 7 turns of wine, and then our continued reuse. We want more of that neutral base. Once again, with that diversity to create different microflora within each barrel, is able to make blending really interesting and really unique. And then a lot of those beers are going on to fruit. And so we're really getting blends that are going to complement the fruit very, very well.
So you just released a couple of those not long ago that were kind of collaborations with the wineries, lambic inspired. I'm probably going to say it right, but like Droof Rouge and Droof Blanc. Is that right?
Yeah.
So how did that relationship come about? You just, I think I read that you actually studied winemaking, and then as a result of it, to try to bring in some information about what you might do with the fruit in the brewing, and you wound up just collaborating with the wineries, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. I mean, we're in Oregon, so we have a lot of beautiful things here, and there's a lot of really passionate people, and there's multiple different wine growing regions. One of the most pronounced is in the Willamette Valley. Brooks Winery, they're actually fairly unique in the Willamette Valley, where they have a major concentration on making Riesling and more of German-inspired white wines, and they grow most of their own grapes, have a phenomenal team. So that's been a year-over-year collaboration with those guys, and they know what we like, and they find fruit that's going to be super dynamic and super complex and really interesting within our beer. And then in the same realm, being in Oregon, of course, we love Pinot Noir, and wanted to work with one of the finest Pinot Noir producers in the Valley. And so we worked with Trisadum this last year, and we have another year working with them again it would be for the 2020 vintage. And those guys make beautiful, beautiful Pinot Noir grapes, and really fortunate for the partnership. And it's so cool to see the different nuances you get within each different fruit. There's a reason why wine is such a popular beverage, is there's so much sugar content within the fruit itself. And so we'll see like a much faster fermentation happen with that when it hits the lambic base. And then let's say like our frambozen, which is raspberries, there's just not nearly as much sugar. And so you get a totally different dynamic of flavor, and you get a lot of that wine that carries through. And so both are really beautiful beverages. I'm a champagne buff and love sparkling wine. And so this is kind of a marriage of love of beer and love in a lot of respect to the winemaking world.
Have you done a beer like a highly effervescent, lighter beer to kind of mimic a champagne?
Well, I mean, not to that extreme. Druva is probably the closest we've got, and that from like a juice concentration, that's probably about 70% beer, 30%, wine juice. But you start getting, people have been playing around a little bit with doing like that 50% grape juice to 50% beer, and I think Firestone's done some projects like that with Barrel Works, and it's a pretty cool wild realm. And that's one thing that's really cool about Cascade Locks is we're going to have even more space, have more ability to play, do smaller batch stuff, really unique stuff, really dive in deep. Gavin Lord, who's our head brewer, runs all of our wood program. He's got ideas for ideas for ideas. And so I think we've just gotten warmed up with what we have the ability to do with wood, fruit, and beer.
I just recently seen or discovered the Italian grape ale style of beer. And I guess it's something that American brewers have kind of played around with. I guess if you do a beer and you use the grape juice in it, that's what it is. But I didn't know that was kind of a style family all its own there.
I didn't realize that either.
And Brian, you actually spent a summer, if I'm not mistaken, picking some wine grapes in the Willamette Valley, didn't you?
I did. Actually, when I was going to college in the Willamette Valley, I didn't actually pick the grapes. I did all the tying and pruning of vines. I did it all throughout school in the Multnomah, Willamette Valley. Let's just say that. Anyway,
in that neck of the
wood. Small area. Okay. Paid pretty well. They finally did get rid of the college students because we didn't work as quickly as some of the other workers they picked up. But that's tough work. I got to tell you, it's
and you're
beautiful.
Not a fan of that at all.
No, not a fan of tough work and all that sun too much for me. This pale skin does not need that at all.
Yeah. That's it. Josh, I was asking about the champagne. We plan to do a show kind of talking about beers for New Year's. In instead of champagne, we typically pop a nice saison or something along those lines for our New Year's toast. So that definitely sounds like some beers that would go along with that. But speaking of the holidays, we were talking about the creep of Thanksgiving and Black Friday and that. Thanksgiving's coming up. So we wanted to kind of get your take on Thanksgiving beer tips. So what are some beers that you may pair with your Thanksgiving dinner?
For sure. I love doing that. So I have a couple traditions that we do with my family, and we'll gather. First and foremost, you got to have a Pilsner when you walk in the door, a really good one. You got to get your palate ready and start light, and then have a lot more Pilsner and other lagers in the fridge, because I love all the big heavy beers and all the beautiful wine, but you got to keep your palate refreshed and make it a long, good evening. And then I love started the evening out with charcuterie and cheese, and so I always like to do a nice spread of like funky mixed culture beers, farmhouse beers, stuff that's really, that can lift a lot of fat and really, showcase some of those like really, really hearty cheeses and meats and smoked salmon, and complement really well. And then move more into Thanksgiving dinner. I love complex beers, big barrel-aged stouts and other more complex barrel-aged beers. And then, mix it in with a little bit of, more hoppy beers that that are made for more of the winter season. I'm all about popping as many beers as possible, everybody sharing, just leaving bottles out on the table, and people getting an opportunity to try lots of different flavors with lots of different foods.
I'm coming over for Thanksgiving. Is that cool?
Sounds good.
Because it sounds like you got the plan together. We have a brewery here does a cranberry sour. Is it?
Three Taverns.
What's the name of that? It was called cranberry sauced.
Yeah, it's
and I
not
forget
anymore.
the name. But when I first tried it, I thought it would be kind of overkill. But it went extremely nice with Thanksgiving.
It is. It's that hyper short time frame. It's perfect for Thanksgiving.
Right there.
But beyond that,
the hyper seasonal. Get it in there. Yeah. Absolutely. You're listening to the Beer Guys Radio Show. We need to take another break, but we'll be back very soon to talk more with Pfriem Family Brewers.
Have you ever thought about owning your own brewery but don't know what it takes to get one built? We're Storytime Construction, and we build breweries. We're Georgia's most experienced and hands-on contractors when it comes to building new breweries and tap rooms, or expanding existing breweries. We offer full build-outs, remodeling, and additions, as well as consulting and construction management. Give us a call at 770-733-4343. Storytime Construction. We build breweries.
Follow the Beer Guys on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
I didn't enjoy it at all.
Now, back to the Beer Guys Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Beer Guys Radio Show. If you enjoy the show, please consider supporting us on Patreon. Just go to patreon.com/beerguys. Patrons get cool perks like Beer Guys swag and commercial-free episodes and even bonus episodes that aren't available anywhere else. We've got a new one this week.
We do, Brian. We have another episode of From the Cellar. We drank a 2014 Firestone Walker Sukaba.
Ooh, Sukaba.
So that's out there. You and I were divided on this one by a fairly large margin, which is unusual for us.
Yeah, that's true.
So give it a listen.
So
Get
much
on Patreon,
drama.
check
in
it out.
this.
Yeah,
yes.
so crazy.
Now
Absolutely.
back to our conversation with Josh Pfriem and Pfriem Family Brewers.
Well, Josh, we definitely want to do some dive into lagers here. That's what I had originally reached out to you. I saw some commentary you made on a Vine Pair article where they were asking people about beer trends. And you mentioned you were happy to see the rise in popularity of lagers, but you also commented it was a huge bummer when brewers chase trends, use cheap ingredients, poor techniques, and too fast a tank time. So is that an issue that you think we're facing in the craft beer world right now?
Absolutely. I think we're in an interesting stage in craft where it's all kind of melded together with big and small, old and new. And we've worked really hard. There's been lots of niches to be able to rise things up, but we're definitely in the chasing of a trend era right now, with hard seltzers and anything else that's hot. People are hopping on it pretty fast and giving a go at it. And I brewed lager beer just about my whole entire brewing career, and I know how hard it is and how much nuance goes into it, and worked with a group of people to take some old European traditions and make them new again and make them American. And there's no shortage of lager in this country. That's what all the big industrial lager is. And there's plenty of that. And I am concerned from small and large that people are going to take advantage of a growing trend and make a mediocre beer, and that could slow down the resurgence of great high quality lager.
I remember seeing here in Georgia that when first the Northeast IPA became popular and it started moving out of the Northeast, and we had several brewers that tried to jump on those trends. And the bottom line is they weren't right. They weren't Northeast IPAs. We got several that were kind of this hybrid with a ton of bitterness, a ton of that West Coast bitterness and maybe a little bit juicy hops, but, none of the haze or anything that's in there. And the one I remember most recently is Brewed IPA. When the Brewed IPA made it to Georgia, we had several brewers that jumped on it, and they did try to take shortcuts. They didn't use the enzymes in the mash. They didn't ferment it dry enough and everything, but they wanted to jump on the fact that Brewed IPA was hot at the time. And they rushed it out there to get that name on the can or name on the tap to try and capitalize on that.
My hot take is there's still some brewers out there doing, New England style IPAs that still have not nailed the style, even as long as it's been out there. So I'm not saying it's they're bad beers.
Anytime something becomes trendy.
Yeah.
Josh, you mentioned the hard seltzers. I just saw in the news today some really great news for us is that Four Loker's 12% hard seltzer is starting to hit the market.
Hey.
So we can get out there and get into that. Absolutely.
I'm still waiting to see a barrel-aged hard seltzer. That's another one of my really bad ideas. That's free for you to use at any point that you want. So no royalties or anything. Just run with it.
One of those wine barrels for that.
Right?
Yeah. So I know that we're seeing kind of generally the rise in lagers, and we have a couple breweries in Georgia here where the brewery themselves, that's their focus. We have Arches Brewing down in Hapeville near Atlanta Airport. They've kind of made their name on lagers. Tucker Brewing Company is a lager focused, and recently Joran van Ginnerochter, who used to brew for 3 taverns here, opened Halfway Crooks that is lager focused there. And they're doing well. Doing well. Especially I think Arches and Tucker both, people are getting in there when they first opened. And Arches, I think, is going on 3 years, Brian.
At least 3.
Somewhere around there. But when they opened, people, snubbed it, said, oh, a lager-focused brewery? No way.
I kind of was one of those people. I didn't snub it, but I'm like, I don't know if they're going to make a go of it with just lagers. I mean, but we were really hot and heavy into hazy IPAs, and people didn't have time for pilsners and lagers,
Yeah. But are you seeing breweries pop up there? I know you guys are a lot more advanced, mature than we are on the beer scene there, but there are new breweries popping up or existing ones that still, do the lager focused?
I think it's a little bit more of a mix up here. I mean, we have one of the oldest craft beer cultures in the U.S. And so what's interesting, what we're seeing is that people make a migration through their palate of, big, bold, huge, crazy, that, and things in hoppy, and then, go to be more delicate, nuance, funky, and then to simple and done well. And so it's been a slow emerging trend that there's people that are really enjoying alongside their big hoppy beers and their big barrel aged beers and their funky beers and anything else. But they've developed their palate to the point that they can really appreciate the nuances of a well-made lager. And in that, you have rising star breweries like, let's say, Breakside out of Portland, who is really known for hop forward beers, but they do tons of different beers in a year. They're continually growing their lager program and doing a really good job. But then you have Wayfinder Brewery in Portland, who is, I believe, just a little over 2 years old. With their main focus is on lagers. And Kevin, who's the brewmaster there, is doing an awesome job. And he's really keeping the bar really high for that.
Yeah, that's, we've seen a lot of changes in the Oregon beer scene. It's been because you guys are more mature. And Brian, I think you noted that, with the number of breweries there, they took a big hit just within a week. They had a few close, right?
Oh yeah. It's been tough for the Oregon beer scene. Like 2 closing, like a third closing in a few weeks.
Those are right in the Portland area too.
Yeah, most of them in the Portland area, a few outside of it. That leads me to a question I've been wanting to ask is how do you stay relevant? How do you stay popular? How do you grow in a market like that where it's very competitive and the people that are losing relevance are just disappearing?
Well, I think it's, for us, because we're still thriving in this marketplace. And when we went to open Pfriem, we started pushing go in 2011 and 2012. And at that point, I've been working towards this for about 10 years. And I had a mission to make really exciting beer and really wanted to give people an awesome experience. And I said, if there's still that opportunity when I'm ready to open my brewery, like, I think it'll be a fruitful future. And it has been just that. I think we've really focused on quality, innovation, being very relevant, and, you know, listening to our consumers, but also driving it ourselves. And I always say that being in the beer industry is we're in the entertainment industry, and so that means you should be entertaining folks, and people should be excited, and people should be engaged. And I think if you're doing that and running a solid business and know who your consumer is, like, just like any other business, you're going to do just fine.
I hadn't really thought about that. You said the entertainment business. That's why there's such a boom in collaborations with bands recently. Have you collaborated on a beer with a band yet? Because it seems like everybody is.
It's the cool thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've never done one directly with a band, but out here in Oregon, we work with a bunch of different food makers and other different industries, and finding unique, fun ways to collaborate with other passionate folks.
That's it. You know, one thing you mentioned, another thing from that VinePair article, you talked about that there's room for innovation and tradition in the brewing and with the lager scene. And I've seen, there was a comment someone made online recently where they went to one of our newer lager breweries and they were angry. They said there was only like 3 to 5 beers on. They were all lagers. And they said, I was in and out in 30 minutes, you know, and this is the person they're ticking boxes, the well chasers, the box tickers, Brian.
Yes.
Do you think we'll ever get to a point, or do you think there's a key to marrying that innovation and tradition to make lagers exciting for those type of people, or do we even need to do that?
I think, you know, there's a large room there. It's a big box. You know, I think there's a reason why. I mean, if you go over to Germany and you go to Munich, you can drink great Munich Helles, and just like you have now for a long time. And I think if you go north in Germany, there's great German Pils, and some of those styles are tried and true, and they don't need tons of refining. You could nuance them, but, you know, we're a brewery that really gives a nod towards tradition, but we let our palates and our terroir drive us in our own direction. But then I have a bunch of friends in Southern California that, you know, their climate in Southern California is different than maybe Germany or in the Pacific Northwest. And so they're taking new, innovative directions with some of their lager brewing, and it works really well with their climate and their culture. And they're trying some new different things. And some of it's really fascinating and tasting super good. I think there's plenty of room for both, but this has to be good.
Well, we're about out of time. So, Josh, if people want to keep up with Pfriem Family Brewers, where should they go?
Go ahead and check us out on freembeer.com. And we have freembeer.com on all our social outlets, from Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. And then if anyone wants to find out about our new and exciting beer club, go ahead and hit us an email at union@freembeer.com.
And for those not familiar, Pfriem is Pfriem, Pfriem.
Indeed.
Absolutely. Josh, thanks again, man. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Well, that about wraps it up for this episode of the Beer Guys Radio Show. Coming up next week, we're going to be talking with Chicago's Revolution Brewing, one we had to reschedule, Brian. We've got him back on here. For more craft beer info, follow us online. We are Beer Guys Radio on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks again for tuning in. Have a great week, and don't forget to drink local. Cheers.